and some people are brand new to this. And I've done a lot. I had 30 years of photography training, and then I did just a series for about 5 or 6 years of art workshops, traditional. I love watercolor painting. I love acrylic. I'm working on mixed media, and I've basically sort of offloaded most of all my traditional art supplies now because I like things simple. I'm at that age where I like things simple. I can do everything I need to do on my iPhone and iPad, and if I don't know how to do it, I'll teach myself. So I take lots of traditional art Zoom classes, and then I work frantically on my iPad to emulate what's happening in the classes. And the latest one I'm doing, which has been really a challenge, is mixed media, how to show torn paper and I know I teach masking and all those kinds of things, putting things together for mixed media pieces on the iPad and the iPhone because I like to whenever I have an extra 15 or 20 minutes, I play around on my phone or my iPad, and that way it's like playing the piano. Every time I get to practice, I get better. And that's what I tell my students, that don't expect to play row 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 your boat this week and a concerto next week, to get a good foundation. So anyway, what I'm gonna, and the class that's coming up, the From Photo to a Painting, is basically I'm going to teach people how to use a photograph they've taken, so it's their own work. But if they don't get out and take photographs, you can take a photograph from the web too. And I'm going to show you some examples of some inspired. The one behind me, it was inspired by Monet's trees. The one that I put up on the virtual screen here. But the demo I'm going to do today is really a very simple, pull up a picture on your iPhone, start painting on that, take it into the Waterlog app to turn it into a watercolor, take the original and do a sketch in iColorama, and then smoosh them together. And that's the demo I'm going to do today. But of course, in the classes are an hour and a half long. So, I take things step by step. I send the students demo images. I don't send out notes ahead of time because I don't want them trying to follow notes, trying to follow the Zoom meeting and trying to follow their screen and my screen. And I also don't always know where I'm going to go because sometimes, I get inspired, or if somebody in the class asks a question, well, what if you did this or that? I will add that on. So I send them notes after the class, and then the recordings are available through PAL also. So yeah, it's tons of fun. I love teaching. I love nature. I love landscapes. I don't like I'm doing drawing classes too. I'm doing enjoy drawing, doing some drawing classes with one of the other teachers at PAL, Caroline. But I get sort of the tedium of drawing, with traditional art supplies kind of sent me to the iPad to where can I recreate some of these repurpose things, repurpose drawings, repurpose exercises. I'm all about repurposing, so that I have takes me half as much time to create something that would take twice as much time if I didn't use repurposed kind of work of my own. So, and I like being unique. I don't copy people's work too much, but I do practice sometimes, and I am inspired by other people's work. So I'm going to share my screen.
Hello, everybody.
And if you have questions, I'm open to questions. I don't know how Allie wants to handle that, if she wants them to come through the chat or.
Yeah, I think we can, if anyone has a question, they can just unmute themselves and ask directly. If that's okay with you, Beth? Or do you want to hold it for the end?
That's fine with me, but if somebody has talking in the background, it would be best to mute at that time.
And then and I'm going to say, if anyone's shy, just put it in the chat and I can ask Beth directly.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a stupid question because, some of you are like kindergartners and I'm like a PhD. I don't want to give myself that much credit, but an MFA. I am up there to where I might say something that you don't understand, and I want you to understand. So no, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Here is an example of a picture I took in front of a mirror yesterday, and I don't want my phone in the pictures, but it's pretty hard to get your phone out of there when you're in front of a mirror. So in using the iPhone editing tools, I went in and I just painted over the stuff I didn't want to show, and that's what I'm going to kind of show you how to do in the demo today. And then I went into Snapseed and I just did some of the filtering to get a more, this is sort of a more of a vintage look. And then I decided I wanted a little bit more painterly. So I took this into iColorama. These are things we'll do in our class. And I also, I make art face masks, and you can see here that I have my own face mask on. I wanted it to show, but it doesn't really fit anymore. So I went, when I was then after iColorama and did some painting, I went into Touch Retouch and I cloned in part of the scarf. So the mask would match the scarf. So those are the kinds of things that you can do. Here's a simple picture I took at a succulent garden yesterday. I went in to this is iPhone editing. You can do this on your iPhone, or you can do the iPhone editing on your iPad. Just painted in some colors. I wanted it to be more colorful. And then I took it into waterlog because I like waterlog, but I don't like it as a finished product always. I like it as a start. So I went into waterlog, and then I went over to iColorama and did a sketch like I did, like I'm going to do today. And then I put the two together and I started blending them. And that's when I came up with various versions, more painterly, some wild. I just put this in there just for but I ended up liking, it's funny because I wanted more color and then I ended up liking this one the best. But you have lots of options when you get into the blending. Here's another, this is just a picture that I took out where I live. It's a landmark place in Benicia. I did a sketch of it. I did in iColorama. Then I went into some of the painterly choices in iColorama. This is called Oilify. You can paint your own with brushes, or you can choose they have some of the choices you can have in the presets are like they'll look kind of Van Gogh style or watercolor style or Monet style, where you'll get the blobs of color, but this is the Oilify. Here is another one. I didn't show you the original image, but this is a place in town. This is the Depot. This is the kind of thing you get from waterlog straight up, which is nice. Beginners really love this kind of work, but for me, it's pretty much needs to go another step to be beyond what anybody can pick up waterlog and do. So when I combine the waterlog with the iColorama, some of the choices in there, it becomes more unique to me, to my vision. Here's another one. This is just from a photograph. This is an inspirational kind of thing. This is a photograph somebody put up in one of our classes and then this is the Procreate painting that I did that was inspired by that photograph. Obviously, you don't want the retaining wall in there. It's kind of boring. Just pick out the things that you like in there. And this has ended up to be a Procreate painting. Here's another picture I took when I was up on the deck having breakfast at a Villa Beach. And obviously I don't want the cars in there. This is a beautiful photograph and I could enhance this and pop it and make it more contrasty and pretty. But this to me screamed paint me. So this is the finished painting for that one. And this involved doing sketching in Procreate, a layer of just a drawing, and then a layer of doing the tree, and a layer of the water, and a layer of the sky, and doing different effects on each one. And then when I was done, I took it back into I did some filter, I don't know, texture filter. I took it back in and into Snapseed and I blended it with a texture photo I had of cement. And that's how I got this effect of looks like canvas. So I like to cross-pollinate apps a lot. That's one of the things I love to do. Here's a simple photograph that I popped the contrast a little bit and then put that in waterlog. Again, this is a simple waterlog painting. This is what I did in the early days and what students will learn how to do, but I know how to make it better now. Here's another one I did. I was inspired by when she gave her speech at the inauguration. So I took a photograph and then I painted it. I painted it myself, and that's what I came out. And by adding text in iColorama, I was able to make the background text, and I was able to mask her out. So that, again, that was from originally from a photograph. Here's another version of that one with just some painterly stuff in there and some words, put her words with, I'm also an author and a writer, so I like putting words with things.
Was that Procreate?
This was a combination of Procreate and iColorama. So I use those two a lot. Between Procreate and iColorama, you can pretty much emulate anything you can do in Photoshop. And I did Photoshop for 30 years. So I want to be able to do anything I can without having to lug around my PC, my bigger computer. This is a Monet picture inspired in one of my classes. We use this for inspiration, and this is what I painted. And this was in Procreate. This is the one that's on my virtual. Here's another from a photograph of George O'Keeffe's painting, and this is the version that I came up with. So sometimes I come pretty close, but this is just practice. I don't sell the ones, that come out looking like the artist, but I like practicing. Here's another one where we did a figure drawing thing, and this was the pose. I took it in, I did some sketching. I can do in iColorama, I can do some sketches, which I'm going to do today. I'm going to go there to pull a sketch, but this one I sketched on my own in Procreate, one layer of sketching, and added some things. And then when I blended it all back together in Snapseed, this was the final thing I came up with. So here's another painted from a photograph that I did. Here's another one painted from one of Monet's photographs, but I embellished it, added my own touches. This is, I can pull from different photographs and put things together, elements like this. I pulled each of the cats separately. I pulled the picture of Medici in the background. I pulled the train by itself, and I pulled the luggage images, and I did some painterly things to those, and then put them all together. Here's a painting from a photograph, from a figure drawing photograph. And here's the flower we're going to start with today. So the first thing, any questions about so far before I start on the demo? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with this photograph is I'm going to duplicate it. And I always, I really don't need to do that because I've already duplicated this one a bunch of times, but I always duplicate because whenever you paint on your iPhone, you're affecting your original image. When you use an image and you pull it into Snapseed or Waterlog or iColorama, it pops out the other end. I'll just say it poops out its own version. So you're not affecting the original. But with the iPhone editing, you are affecting the original. And if you accidentally start painting on an original, you can go back into iPhone editing and you can revert and get it back to the original. But if you haven't duplicated the painting that you did in the picture, if you haven't duplicated that before you go back and revert one of them, you will not have a copy of what you've done. So, and when I paint in, yeah, I'm going to take this background off for a minute because when I paint, I want to show you something. And I think that Allie put these in the description. But when I do things on the iPad, I have a little iPad and I have an iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil. And you don't need the top of the line iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil. Today I'm using my small iPad and I'm using a stylus. I could do this with my finger, but I like the styluses. I think Allie put them in the instructions. I like the Miko because they have a fine tip on one end, and when you and on the other end they have a rubber tip. And so the fine tip is better for signing, for drawing lines, for doing line drawing and things like that. So I'm using my stylus today, but I could just as easily be doing this with my finger. So I have my picture up here now, and I'm going to go ahead and click on edit. I'm editing this picture on my right in the iPhone editing choices. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brighten it a little bit, and I often do that because there's two things I do to increase the contrast so that I get better lines. I like paintings that have some line form to them, especially when I do a watercolor. I like to add back inline sketches, and at the end you'll see why. But here, so I'm gonna I turn this auto on. That's brightening it a bit, but it's kind of dark. But I'm not gonna darken the exposure. I mean, it's kind of light. I'm gonna flip through the choices here, and I'm on an 11 Pro. I mean, I'm on an iPad. I'm not on a phone, but you'll get these extensive editing options are in the later phones. Like I think they're maybe in the 8 or 10 on up, but not on the 6s. I started with a 6 and an 8, and I can do plenty of things on those, but I may have more editing choices in mind than you have on your phone if you have an older phone. So the next thing I like to do is pump up the contrast, which means separate the lights and darks a little bit, is to go into contrast and see if I by using this slider and I'm watching my image, I can make the lines a little bit more distinct. And the other thing that I always generally do if I'm going to do a painting, because I like them to be, I could do a soft painting, but I kind of like to start with good color. So I'm flipping down on this menu, I'm flipping down to saturation, and I'm going to increase the saturation. And I can decrease it if I want a softer image, but I'm going to increase it up to, you can increase up to 10. And what you're doing basically is putting back in the color that you lost with the digital capture. But I'm going to go up a little more because I'm going to do a painting of this. So I'm going to go up to 20. And then I'm going to click done, just to make sure that I save things up to this point. And here again, I'm going to duplicate, because I duplicate at different stages. So if I want to go back and change half of it and not both of it, then, you know, if I want to go back and change half and I want to change both, then I want to save one. So I'm pulling back up one of these, and now I'm going to start doing the painting. So I'm going to go back into iPhone editing. This is no apps at this point. You can see that I could revert this back to the original, but I don't want to do that. Right next to the word revert is a circle with 3 dots. That is what you pull up to get the markups tools. So when I touch that circle with 3 dots, I have other options here that you may not have if you don't have the apps on your phone, but I'm just going to touch markup. And then that'll bring up a markup screen. This is where you go if you want to sign your images or add text. I'm just going to draw on it, but I have to tap that tool. And I use the first 3 tools. There's kind of an inking tool is the first thing. It's a thicker line, and then the middle one is a marker, and then the other one is a fine tip. And if I double tap them, I can turn down the opacity, and in this way I can blend colors together. So if I can't get all the colors I want from the color wheel here, I can turn down this slider to bring down the opacity. I can change the size of the mark to make it you know, a different kind of a mark. The first thing I'm going to do is outline this. So I'm choosing the first tool, and I'm going to choose a pink to outline with, because I don't really, at this point, I'm not ready for a black outline. To choose from colors, there's a rainbow circle down there. If you tap that, it brings up a color palette. I'm just going to choose one of the pinks. I think I'll go with the light one. And I'm going to do it at 100% opacity. Then I tap outside of there to get rid of the menus. And now what I forgot one thing I have to do. I have to hit the plus sign to let it know I want to paint on here. I'm not going to hit text because I don't want a text box. I'm going to touch signature, and this is where I could add or remove a signature. I've got some in there, but I'm going to touch it, and then I'm going to hit the plus to add one. If you did that, the signature thing comes up, and I'm just going to click, I think done. Click outside. Nope, I have to click cancel. Sometimes this works kind of funny and you have to do one thing or another, but when I hit the plus and I hit done, I can still, now I'm in the drawing tools. I hit signature and I hit done because I didn't want to add a signature, but I still have the drawing tools available. So the first thing I'm going to do really is just draw around this flower, and I'm going to do it really quickly. And then I'm going to do a couple of other things to it to make it stand out a little bit more and make it look more painterly. But right now I want some outline here in the areas where, but you know, you can, if you look what I'm doing, I'm like really doing this loosely. And if I don't like a mark, I just don't like that mark I just did, I touched the pen again, I touched the back arrow, and then I just start painting again, try to get a little bit straighter line. I don't really care. And I'm not going to do anything with the leaves here because I know from waterlog, I know the waterlog is going to turn these leaves into something beautiful. So now I've kind of got a sketch. Now I'm going to go back and fill in these flowers a little bit. So I'm going to go back and use the marker tool first. And I'm going to choose a darker, you can see that I've got a darker, I'll choose a kind of a dark color there. And I'm just going to go right in where the shadows are. That's maybe a little dark. So I think I'll blend that back with a pinker pink. Maybe just make it a pinker pink, and now I'm just, that's a light pink. I don't want to do a fat line where there's not a fat area. That's a lighter pink, and I know that blending that with the darker is going to be more apt to get me where I want. So I just go back and forth between the colors here and the size of the markers, and I'm just kind of filling in the shadows just to get a little bit more drama where the shadows are. And I'm going back and forth between the tools. I'm turning down the opacity so they blend a little better. Just filling in some areas. And now that's just, I need to sort of finish off that one on the right a little bit with more of a tip. I don't like that it's squared off. So I'm used my fatter pen. I'm gonna come down here. I need to go even darker because I started out really dark. Just fill that in, and you can see that I can sort of get a little bit more shape out of it if I use my smaller tool around the edges. I can get a little bit more darken the dark areas. So, and this is just like fun stuff. You could, like, you know, you go back to when you're a child and you just paint away. So I'm going to do a couple more things just really quickly here. I'm going to, using my marker, I'm going to fill in the flower a little bit. I don't really like that pink. I'm going to go back and put a different pink over it. And just fill in parts of this flower. I really want that area to be, I want some of these other areas to be light. I'm just going over some areas really here just to quickly show you what can be done here. I'm changing colors, changing back and forth, pinks, whites. Might want a little white here, maybe a little white there, maybe not. It's a little bit, it's too much opacity. But you're watching what you're doing. You know, you can see that you can change the colors by changing the opacity or choose other colors. And so I'm just basically going to fill in a little bit more, a couple more minutes. If you're doing this on your own phone, I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of go back and forth, and then adding some light areas. I'll add some darker. And then I'm going to start adding in some lines so that I can have the kinds of lines that this flower has. I don't want to lose those pretty line areas. So I'm going to then change back to the fine tip. I'm going to go to the fine tip here, choose a pink of some kind. We'll go with a lighter pink for the lines. And I'm going to just start drawing in some lines over some of these areas. It looks like I'm using the same color, so it's not showing. I'll go down lighter. You can see, if you look at my painting now, you can see that I'm adding in some lines here in these areas where I have put some solid color. I'm just adding in some lines for interest. You can see all along this side of the flower, there's kind of a lot of lines here. So, and I'm gonna eventually, I'm gonna be doing some different things. So So I kind of know where I'm going. So I'm just adding some different color lines in right now. Go back and use my white a little bit. So I can get lines in everywhere. Now I haven't filled in all the colors in this flower, but you know, you can see that I could have done a better job here, I think, with this blending this area here. Go down opacity a little bit. Blending this area, I got it pretty white, so I really don't want it that white. I want it kind of to blend in, so that's why I'm doing this, kind of going back over. So it isn't quite so white. So now let's add back in a little bit more white and then move on. Oops, I don't want that much opacity. Turn the opacity way down. Okay, so you can see I'm getting a little bit of, we're really going for variation here and interest. So now I'm going to call this done at this point. And I'm going, when I have to go done twice to get out. If you go done once, you can add some more lettering, a signature things, but I'm going to go done twice. And I'm going to duplicate this again. And if you take one of my classes, you're definitely going to probably want to add to your storage because you're going to want to save various renditions. So sometimes these programs, apps, they'll just stop because of whatever device or power surges or any kind of thing. So I save at different stages in case I don't want to lose something. So you can see here, I haven't done anything with the green. I've just filled in the flower. So now I'm going to take the flower and I'm going to go back and I'm going to copy it. And do that at the box with the arrow is options. I'm going to copy the photo. Now I'm going to go out of there and I'm going to go into Waterlog. The Waterlog app is that one that looks like an SOS in the upper left-hand corner, second one in. I'm going to tap on that. And some of these apps you can paste your image in. It says start there. I could choose from my photo library. I could take a picture, but I copied it specifically so I can paste it. So I do that because if you pick a picture back a month back and you try to find it by your photo roll, you'll just see little tiny icons and it's hard to find. So I put everything I'm working on in a working album and I copy whatever I can into apps. But you can see that this painted at the first filter. The first filter level is vibrant. It paints always, it starts there. If I wanted, there's two of these filters that have something underneath with the tabs. The vibrant has a natural, you can see it's smaller because it hides behind. The It's Technical has a streamlined that hides behind. I'm just going to go, and I know the ones I'm going to use here, and this is a demo, so I'm not going to, in class, we would go through all of these, see the different effects, and I would point out the ones I like best for watercolor. But here I know that I'm going to go, I want the vibrant and I want to check it against the bold, which is next door. I have to tap on the icon to see what comes up in the bold and see what it does to the background. It makes it watercolory, and I could have filled it in with paints and things, but I kind of want the flower to stand out. I kind of want the background to remain background. So I could check this other, I like this one right here, bold. It's like a 1-2 eye check. You can only check 2 at a time in Waterlog. So the other ones I know that I sometimes like are soaked and shallow for watercolors. But here the, looks like the shallow is going to be too, I don't want washed out. It's like, do I like 1? Do I like 2? Do I like 1? Do I like 2? I go through this exercise. I'm going to try soaked because I don't like what shallow did. Here's another one. And here I'm going to end up choosing the bold because I want bold colors for this exercise, but you have choices, 1, 2, and I'm going to stay here. So I'm going to save this image by clicking on that box with the arrow, and I can save to my photos. I know this will go to my photo roll. So I have one part of the blending image that is done now. So I saved that to my photo roll. I'm going to go back to my photos, make sure it's there, and finding things can be a problem because they don't go straight to your library all the time. But luckily I know where to find them. So I'm going to go back to and choose the original again. And now I put this in front of my face because this is the one I want to bring into iColorama and get a sketch there from iColorama. So I bring it up. It's a muscle memory kind of thing. That's a picture I want to grab. I can't copy and paste into iColorama, so I want to know what picture I'm going to go after. So I'm going to bring up iColorama, and I'm going to open it with the photo up in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to bring in the album. Actually, I'll go to the album we did this morning so I can make sure I get the one I saved there. I want the original, and I think it is this one. I always get my sketches from the original because I want the sharpest sketch, and if you put a waterlog image in here, you won't get a sharp sketch. So I'm bringing in the original photo, and then I know where to go for my sketches. I can go to Style, Sketch, and I have all these presets here. I can get all of these, give me a different sketch. I know that I'm going to use 3 here, but this isn't quite, I don't want it dense. If I go to 4 or 5, really more dense, and I don't really want, if I had water drops on there or something I wanted to show, I might want more dense. But here I just want a simple sketch, so I'm going to go with 3. And now I'm going to save that because I want to use this sketch. I'm going to save it, and I can save it as JPEG, and it goes to my photo roll. So I'm going to go back to my photo roll, and I'm going to find that sketch. And because I want to do one more thing to it before I smoosh it with my painting. I'm going to bring up that sketch, and I want it a little darker. I don't want the detail, because if it gets too much dark detail, it's going to, whenever you put 2 images together, if they're dark on dark, makes things darker. So I don't want it a lot darker, but I'm going to edit it. I'm just going to pop it one time with the wand. And now I've got the outline lines are the boldest. I have some detail in it, which is fine. But I didn't like the way the sketch the squiggles went in iColorama. That's why I didn't choose the more involved sketch. But here I can use this slider to give me whatever extent I want in this sketch. I want it darker, but I don't want the detail to show as much. So I'm going to click done. And now I have my sketch, and I have my watercolor painting. So now I'm going to go into Snapseed. I'm going to take this watercolor painting into Snapseed. I can copy it. I can copy it in Snapseed. So I can paste it in. So I'm copying it to begin with. Go out of there. Go into Snapseed. And oops, I got to hold it down. I want to put my own image in there. This is the last image I worked on is in there still. So that's what the last one, when the last one's in, if you don't copy and paste, you can click on that open in the upper left-hand corner and get back to your photo roll. So now I have this image here, and I want to put it with that sketch. So I'm going to hit the tool, and I'm going to go double exposure down at the bottom. If you have a phone, you have to, if you're on your phone, you can do this on your phone. You have to slide up because it won't show. Double exposure. I'm going to choose right down on the bottom. Now I'm going to choose open image. I'm going to pull in that sketch, and I'll wait for a minute for it to download. When the style and that becomes dark so you can use it, that's when you know it's in there. So I'm going to check the styles here. I usually start with default because that shows me I have 2 pictures. It shows half of one and half of the other, but obviously that's not the one I want for my finished product. I don't want lighten. I don't want, that's the one I'll probably choose. Darken and subtract are very similar. And now you can see I've got my outlining. I've got the outlining from the from the sketch that I did, and I just have to decide. I like the darken, the subtract, because it's showing more of the black. Now I'm liking the black. Okay. So I'm gonna hit the check mark, and that's, I can see it needs cropping, and I can do that here too with the tools. I take the tools, I'm gonna crop, and I'm doing a free crop. I'm not trying to make it greeting card size or anything, but I don't want to get rid of the white. I save the border in waterlog because I save borders in waterlog when the color spills over, but I don't want that black at the top. So I have to just bring the thing down just to the white. And it still have
When
a,
you
yeah.
when you do the sketch, is it considered transparent on transparent background rather than white?
You can create a transparent background, but I didn't do that here with the drawing. I just left the white background. When you put images together and there's a big white space or a big dark space, that will usually fill in with color. So I don't worry about transparencies when I blend, unless I'm trying to select an object and then just have that object and move it around. And I don't want any interference from a color around it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then ask any questions you want to. And to save in Snapseed, always use the export at the bottom, or if you save a copy somewhere, it will have Snapseed codes in it, and it could cause you problems elsewhere. So yeah, so this, for the demo, this is my finished product. For a class, we might go on and we would add signatures. We might add a poem. I teach my class how to, when they have an image done, they can go to the web and grab a poem. Like if you want sayings about tulips or sayings about flowers, you can go to the web, copy a saying, paste it in text, and then there's 3 different apps that I teach for doing different kinds of text, even text curves, text lines, text wavy lines, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I could go on. I don't want to, using that same markup tool, you could add a signature here, but the text boxes and signature, when you click the plus and you click one of those, they come up right in the middle of your image in black text. So, so if they come up in black. So if you had a black flower here, you'd have to know that text box was there and put your stylus or your finger on it and slide it down so you can see it. Put it down to an area that's not black, or you'd have to change the color. So it's a little tricky that way. Any other questions? So yeah, this was a really simple painting, but in the class, obviously we get into more detail and more sophisticated paintings, like some of the things that I showed you. And oftentimes I'll query the people in the first class and say, do you prefer landscapes? Do you prefer portraits? What do you want to work with? And then I have images. I have 133,000 images on my phone, so I got plenty to choose from. And I send the image out, and then they work right along. And I really go slow in the classes. I